Hi Acadiana, I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker and welcome to your Thursday. Kind of a rainy one out there today as those big thunderstorms have continued to move across the area, and we even have a flood warning that's out for parts of Acadiana. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but a lot of tropical moisture in place across Acadiana, but not a lot of tropical moisture in place over the Atlantic basin, and that's why we haven't seen a whole lot of action over the last couple of days. So let's go ahead and step outside. As you can see, all of our roadways are pretty much wet here in Acadiana due to the tropical downpours that have been coming down, and you can see that there's some water on the side of the road as well. Traffic on most of these cameras are looking like they're moving okay, but there have been some very heavy downpours out there. In fact, as we look at the radar here, got it zoomed in where we do have a flood warning, and that's going to be out until 2:30. Some of these areas picking up between 1 and 2 inches of rain, and I want you to keep in mind that a lot of these areas that are within that flood warning, Lafayette, Broussard, Youngsville, and over toward Brobridge, have picked up a number of inches of rain over the last couple of days. As we bring it back out, you can see the heaviest amounts of rain are now cruising across the Basin Bridge right at about the Atchafalaya River now, and will continue to head over toward the capital city while things are starting to improve back to the west. But we've got more energy that's going to be coming in from the northwest probably later today and into tonight, so we may end up with some showers and thunderstorms either overnight or rolling through here again during the morning hours of Friday. So rain in the forecast, and it looks like it's going to stay in the forecast for the next several days. Let's go ahead and move along and look at more of our tropics and the Gulf of Mexico satellite showing the convection that's going on over the Acadiana region. You got a bit of an upper level low that's right about there. That's been kind of sneaking its way off the Texas coast, while at the same time there's a front coming in from the northwest. You got a pretty good ridge of high pressure that's out here over the eastern part of the Gulf of Mexico, which is basically throwing that onshore flow right at us, and that upper level low is helping it out. So we've kind of got a double barrel area of very warm and moist tropical air that's moving toward the Acadiana region, and with a front settling in, all that is going to pool right here over Acadiana and along the Louisiana Gulf Coast, and that's why we're expecting those heavy rain chances over the next couple of days. As we look over here toward the Central American areas, we do have some bigger rains on the coast of Nicaragua and out here right along the coast of Panama as well. But northern sections of Central America, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and southern Mexico right now are relatively dry. As far as the Caribbean satellite is concerned, it is still very quiet out here. There's a bit of a tropical wave right about in there that's moving off. Maybe it's a little bit farther off to the east, but right in there, moving off toward the west. And that is bringing some scattered showers and thunder showers there to southern parts of Puerto Rico and the northern coast of Venezuela. But there's a lot of Saharan dust out here as well, too. So things really are going to have a hard time trying to develop there over the central part of the Caribbean. As far as the rest of the tropical Atlantic, we don't have much going on. We've got a couple of tropical waves that are out there. Tropical wave right about here and a tropical wave right about over here. But really, because of all that Saharan dust that we have out here and over here, we're just really not going to see a whole lot of action. You see a little rotation up there. That's more of an upper level low that's going to throw some thunderstorms up here to around Bermuda, and that's about all we've got out in the middle part of the Atlantic. The eastern part of the Atlantic showing a fairly vigorous monsoonal trough that's here right over western portions of Africa, and that's going to go ahead and roll off into the Atlantic Ocean. But again, there's a lot of this Saharan dust that's up here to the north, so it's going to be interacting with that, and therefore chances for any development is going to be fairly low. Water temperatures, though, still sky high, and we've seen those 26, 27 degree waters now. They go all the way out to the African coast. So basically, the entire area would be open for business if we had any tropical cyclones out there. And as far as that tropical cyclone heat potential, which that graphic for some reason has disappeared, we are looking at the possibility of some very warm temperatures of the water and also deep water. So we'll get to that Trying to figure out what happened to that graphic. Looks like it just disappeared there. But there is a lot of Saharan dust that's out there. Precipitable water, just very dry conditions now currently over much of the Atlantic basin. Notice we're socked in with all of the deep moisture here over the western part of the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to see rain. Fortunately, we're not going to see any tropical development, and over the next several days, a ton of dry air in the mid and upper levels across the development zones of the Atlantic basin, while things stay relatively moist here over the western part of the Gulf of Mexico. So the GFS model really isn't showing a whole lot. This model takes us all the way through August the 2nd, maybe a little hint of a tropical wave getting somewhat organized there off the African coast farther down the period, and the Euro model is virtually the same with a big ridge of high pressure. That big Bermuda high is out here. Things kind of working its way off the Atlantic coast and then kind of pushes off toward this direction. Again, anything that wants to develop out here over the Bahamas most likely would be turning northward and then heading back out to sea. Everything kind of goes around that big ridge of high pressure. So as far as any tropical weather, I know this one's kind of a boring episode, but there just really isn't a lot to talk about out there, at least for the next 7 days. But does that mean it's going to stay that way? A lot of people get this way when we get a couple of things happening in June and the early part of July, and then everything shuts down for about 4 or 5 weeks. And this happens just about every single year. And there are always people that are out there saying, well, what happened to hurricane season? I guess we're not going to meet those numbers that, everybody's been predicting. Well, the progress of the season in July, we tend to have a lot of our storms still developing in the same areas where we would see conditions during the month of June. But remember, we've got all that Saharan dust out there, which is kind of something that's a normal pattern for the month of July, and hence the reason why July's numbers are a little bit lower. A lot of times in July, a cold front will come off of the East Coast with a low pressure center along it, and that's why you see a little bit more development here off the East Coast. But the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and the western part of the Atlantic are also open for business. But check this out, in just a few weeks, it's a couple of weeks, it's going to be August. And by that point in time, you start to see more areas opening up. The development gets a little more frequent here over the Gulf of Mexico, the western Atlantic, and also out here in the far eastern, or the eastern Atlantic there, going right off the coast of the Leeward and Windward Islands. You get a large number of tropical systems that will develop in this area. Sometimes they come up and they curve around along the East Coast. Other times they come across the Caribbean. A lot of times they just go across every single speed bump we've got out here in the Caribbean, and they can get their way into the Gulf of Mexico as well. So that is where most of our storms will develop during the month of August. And speaking of August, it's like I said, it's only 13 days away. So we're right about in this area here. So there's the cusp where everything really starts to ramp its way up. And by the time you reach September 10th, that is the peak of the hurricane season. And it's been pretty common during the month of August and September to have at least 4 named storms develop in each month. So watch out for that. Numbers are still fairly high on the prediction, but it's still not completely out of the question that we could still reach some of those numbers, which, again, as I've told you many times, like a broken record, these are some of the things that you can do now to get yourself ready. I know it's kind of rainy out there today, but we don't have any tropical systems coming in our direction, so these are the basics that you would need to have on hand if a tropical storm or hurricane was coming in our direction. Of course, you have another list that you would do if a hurricane is definitely going to be threatening within 3 days, and then, of course, the evacuation plan if you need it there too. But these are the things that you can do right now. Well, I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. I enjoy hanging out with you for lunch. I know this one was a little bit shorter than our normal one is. Subscribe to the channel and also turn on those notifications. I'll be doing some radar updates on social media throughout the day. If anything severe comes along or more widespread severe weather, we may go ahead and trigger the severe weather stream here on Acadiana Weather Today, but more likely you will see me again tomorrow morning between 7:30 and 8 for our early morning forecast, which is called Acadiana Weather Today. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Have a great day, and I will see you on Friday.